Well, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folarin. My guest this morning, starting off there, is Mr. Malaki Ugumadu. He's an activist and legal practitioner. Thank you very much. And, you know, I always like to add the other one. Remind me of that one.
Well, I'm sure you're talking of my presidency as the immediate past national president of CDHR.
Indeed, forgive me. CDHR, Committee for the Defense of Human Rights.
You are part of us. Thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Malaki. Because what brings you here today, and another lawyer that will be joining us shortly, is, shall I say, the shocking news to most of us when it sort of broke, maybe not in the general press, but certainly in legal sections of the press, that a memo had leaked that had been written by justices of the Supreme Court complaining that their welfare was poor in the extreme. And they were complaining about the things that ordinary folk like us might possibly be complaining about. But to imagine that justices of the Supreme Court of the Federal Republic, no less, are complaining about things like even internet allowance, even housing, even diesel, accommodation for judges. None of that has been done. And they wrote a pointed memo to the Chief Justice of Nigeria, who I imagine, who is their boss. So it's very much like an internal memo, but it leaked. Malaki, have you heard that kind of thing before?
I haven't. By the special grace of God, I'm almost 2 decades in the bar now. I have not had this. In short, by yesterday when I got this invitation, and yet another from a sister organization, which I declined, haven't accepted to be here.
Thank you very much.
I didn't know the magnitude of it until I went online and searched and got. I've had the privilege of interfacing with, if you like, that institution of the judiciary in a recent workshop in May, where I was a resource person, discussant to a paper, and we had very many justices of the Supreme Court, courts of appeal, and heads of state high courts and federal high courts, national judicial, national industrial court, and so on and so forth. I could sense that there are issues, but I least expected that it would get to this point.
The highest court of the land.
Yes, where
having difficulties like this.
Now, since yesterday up to this moment, I had, personally watched to see whether there will be disclaimer or refutal or denial. And none of those has happened. Yes, I observed that the letter is neither dated nor signed. I did observe that. However, names of sitting justices of the Supreme Court are appended to that letter.
Indeed.
Which is more or less a protest letter. And if you ask me, ended with a threat that if the Chief Justice of Nigeria failed to take not just a proactive step, but a swift one in redressing some of the concerns raised, they were going to take the next step, and in their words, immediately. I think that if you put that side by side with the smoldering smoke in the Nigerian police, a few months ago we learned that magistrates in Cross River State took onto the street. You could find that we are really at a crossroads, more so because judges, no less, those who occupy the highest court in the country, are extremely conservative persons.
This is the big news about it.
By their oath, a bit restrained from making such public utterances, particularly.
Well, it wasn't public till it was leaked.
Well, now that it has leaked.
Unfortunately, it has become public. It was an internal memo.
Memo
and this is despite allegedly a 120 billion naira budget, for the court system. In fact, one of the more dramatic headlines says, despite 120 billion naira budget, we have no data allowance, electricity to do our work, Supreme Court justices revolt against CJN Tanko. This is, and let me read you just one paragraph, since it's out there. It says, they lamented how requests for legal assistance, standard health clinic, accommodation for justices, diesel, and data allowance had been ignored by Mr. Tanko, even though the Chief Justice set up a panel months earlier that he said would look into the matter. So, I mean, in fact, there's more, but it's a bit embarrassing to read. But that sort of shows you the tone of it. We can't have justices going on strike, can we? And then more so of the apex court. I learned that I have lawyers around me so frequently that the apex court, and they are being so shabbily treated. Now, you said you haven't heard any rebuttal, any refutation? Yet. They, quite frankly, how does one use his mouth to say it? Accusing the Chief Justice of inefficient leadership. Well, I mean, I didn't want to say that, but it was in the secret memo that was leaked.
Let me make a few points very clearly.
Sure.
The first is that, and this is not the first time I'm saying it, even on this program, that fragile notion of justice is rooted in the confidence of the people. When I say the people, the citizens of the country. When factors conspire to shake that confidence, that concept, that notion of justice disappears. It does not go or evaporate when you lose or win a case. It is when the public no longer have confidence in what goes on there. I take this seriously because that which has gone to the public now facilitates such loss of confidence. And I make this point because up until this moment, I have not had a refutal. I have not had a denial. I have observed that the protest letter, which I characterize as a threat because it so ended, has neither date nor signed by any of the justices whose name was appended to that letter. But look, the point is clear. It is that to what extent has this deteriorated? So much so that you could even have such a protest letter, even if it was meant to be an internal.
Okay, exactly.
Now, for me, it throws up a couple of issues. The one is the leadership recruitment system that we have had in the judiciary. I've had the privilege of dealing extensively with that too, the appointment and promotion of judges. That is the one. The other is, to what extent, if you read the letter thoroughly, as I did, you would find that there was something absurd about it. It appeared to me that even the administration, management of the Judicial, of the Supreme Court, is in the hands of the Chief Justice of Nigeria. I didn't think that was proper. There ought to be a bureaucracy.
Okay.
Just as you have in the National Assembly, no less in the executive, dealing with the day-to-day. It baffled me how co-justices of the Supreme Court were pointedly accusing the Chief Justice of Nigeria on issues of diesel, dysfunctional vehicles, how it was not possible that they could embark on the routine training that they were used to, at least twice a year.
Exactly.
Rather than the one they had in Dubai and...
no, they have been limited now They were complaining to just Dubai.
Yes, no, they said it used to be yearly exercise. But that since 2018 or so,
yes,
or 2020, that they have not gone except from the one they went in Zanzibar and Dubai.
Let me quote the
and then accused him directly of taking his own spouse and children.
There you go.
To the ones he attended.
According to the leaked memo, a paragraph, buttressing their claims, the justices said that their mandatory foreign workshops and training 3 times a year, quote, with an accompanying person for reason of age, unquote, have been on hold under Mr. Tanko, who has now limited the options to only Dubai and Tanzania without an accompanying person. There's another paragraph that is quite damaging from my point of view, because you look at those people as semi-gods, so to speak. The justices berated, according to the article, berated Mr. Mohammed further, saying his inefficient leadership had drastically deteriorated the standards known with the nation's highest court. Now, that is the scariest. If anything can actually work to deteriorate the quality of service delivery, it's hard to wrap your head around it. So, now, whose problem is this? Because you've mentioned the fact that you're surprised that the CJN is in charge of the administrative bureaucracy and diesel.
Internet.
Yes.
Travel schedules. And every other sundry activities that characterize the functions. Well, I understand that he is not just the Chief Justice of the Federation. He is the head of the judiciary and chairman of the National Judicial Council. That is given. But in leadership at that level, you cannot expect that at that level, occupying those sensitive positions, there are no structures, bureaucracies to deal with this day-to-day administration of the judiciary. I was surprised by that. I was taken aback.
What this means is that, yes, we've come to know it now, but this is the way it had always been. Only one way or the other, there appears to have been a higher level of efficiency.
Well, I doubt if that is how it has always been, because even in the narrative that we have, you could see that the justices referenced the constitution or composition of a committee known as the Welfare Committee to deal with the exigencies of some of these complaints. Now, part of their anger was that they have not gotten any response in spite of that committee being set up over 2.5 years ago. Now, that presupposes that some of these concerns that they've complained about ought to be handled by other structures, other bureaucratic institutions within the judiciary to effectively disperse. I don't think you would have a Chief Justice of Nigeria who goes from one justice apartment to the other to check whether the internet services are functioning.
Or whether he even has an apartment at all.
You know, look, this point you made is very important to me, because while I was doing my research on the paper I talked about, the appointment and promotion of judges, I came by an information which was very disturbing to me. And that happened in one of the states of this federation. I won't mention that. But it was that judges, well, this was at the state level, who were appointed over a year or two ago, have not gotten their accommodations.
Yes, now.
This featured in their, at the Supreme Court.
To wit, as you lawyers say, they were concerned that Supreme Court justices sworn in since November 2020 had yet to be accommodated by the Apex Court in spite of Mr. Mohammed's promise.
Now,
so all going back to
in
the
that
CJN.
particular instance that I mentioned, what I found out, because it was a reported incident by one of their colleagues, was that a particular judge who was allocated an accommodation, it turned out that those arrangements were quickly packaged just to meet the requirement of the inspecting regulatory members of the National Judicial Council who have come, a kind of accreditation to find out whether all things are in place. Soon after that exercise, and soon after the appointment, he was taken to another apartment where it was found that the judiciary, by extension, the state had been owing the landlord, and that he took the collaboration and assistance of other judges to assist him when this man came with talks to throw the occupant out of there. So, you know, I thought that was too heavy, but to now hear it directly, even if, like we have agreed now, this is supposed to be an internal memo, yet to be denied, it shows that the government itself must act swiftly, because once there is chaos in the judiciary, we're already at the last bus stop before anarchy.
Now, all these
That's
things,
how it operates.
just as you've mentioned once, just as all of this, the judges were also very unhappy that they were furious that, you know, they're traveling with the entire family. We're furious that the CJN traveled with his entire family and personal staff. The justices demanded to know what had become of their allowance, despite the judiciary gulping up 120 billion naira of the nation's 2022 budget. So I guess what their lordships are implying is that it's not that there are no resources. In fact, they themselves say it. We find it, quote, "We find it strange that despite the upward review of our budgetary allocation, the court cannot cater for our legitimate entitlements. This is unacceptable." I mean, speaking to the CJN.
Yes. Well, I think that point needs to be emphasized, because they anchored that allegation, that particular strand of the allegation, on the fact that there is a recent budgetary improvement, increase, that ought to deal with some of the challenges they are still facing. And let's speak to this. You see, given the way the judiciary is constituted, and given the ethics of the code of their conduct, you hardly will see them come out in this manner, whether covertly or overtly. So that alone is a big surprise. But the point to make is that it appears that some of the campaign they are leading now, by what has happened, because some of these leaked documents in other spheres are sometimes, most times, deliberately done.
Of course.
To gain traction.
It's a strategic leak.
Yes, to gain traction.
It's a strategic leak. So, Mr. Ojo has called in. Good morning to you, sir. Mr. Ojo.
Yeah, good morning. How are you?
Thank you for calling in. Go ahead, please.
Yes, this man was brought to continue the damages of this country. He was brought in specifically to damage the Supreme Court, desecrate the Supreme Court. He should have gone in 2019, but they purposely kept him to continue doing the damages. I don't know how this man shouldn't have gone.
I understand you may be angry, but I can't fathom your idea that a person, any person, by the way, would be brought in to further damages. You know, maybe you're just a bit angry. Nobody could have brought anybody in to further damage an already bad situation. Okay, he's gone. But, you know, perchance, you know, it just was a reflection of his anger, because the idea is almost preposterous.
Well, I alluded to that, but in a different form.
Yes.
I said this whole challenge has thrown up very germane concerns that must now attract the attention of not just the public, but the judiciary as an institution. And make no mistake about it, the judiciary is an arm of government. You see, these are very informed, highly educated, professionally skilled individuals who have gotten to the pinnacle of their profession and career. And to come out so hard and in a manner that is expected of unions and organizations, it leaves much to be desired in terms of allowing these kind of situations to even occur in the first place.
Indeed. And the judges are also angry that something in the internal memo about being forced to close by 4 p.m. over lack of diesel, an act they said proves the apex court has sunk into unthinkable depths under Mr. Mohammed's leadership. Reverend Dominic, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning, Yori. Good morning to Malaki.
Good morning, Reverend.
Okay, if you can hear me, Chief Yori.
No, we can't hear you, unfortunately.
Can you hear me?
Well, it's not your fault. I think they'll make it so we can hear downstairs in studio. I don't know.
Okay.
But continue in the meantime.
But I can hear you.
Yes.
Can I go on?
Please continue.
Okay. Yori, the first caller was very angry. The question is this. I don't know why he's angry if I ask myself a question. What you ask yourself, Yori, what is I don't know how to put it. What is the philosophy of our nation? I've used this word several times. What is philosophy of our nation? From education to judiciary, how have we failed? The other day we had a policeman to go on strike. We thought it's a rumor, and nobody debunked that rumor. Until they begin to, I heard from Mr. President have added money or salary of policemen. Where they have paid them is what we don't know. Every sector of our nation, Yori, I lived here in the Lemosho for 6 months now. I have not power light. What is the state of our power? So that memo is not surprise to anybody who is a Nigerian. Our structure of our nation has broken down. Let us move this way. Today, we are about to have an election next year to bring a president in Nigeria. How many of these presidential candidates are addressing this issue? ASU is on strike. If I come to power, ASU will not be on strike. There's no power. If I come to power, there will be power. There's no water. Who is addressing these issues? Nobody. Infrastructure. By now, that memo is supposed to be a wake-up call to presidential candidates. Because a judiciary is a picture of a good nation. When judiciary breaks down in a nation, don't mind the hope of common man or the rich man or the high man. Judiciary is the hope of the structure and the law abiding of a nation. When judiciary is broken down, what is lawlessness? No matter the structure you look at it, ASU cannot protest well because they cannot go to industrial court. If they cheated you in GBC, you have no place to run down to. Me here, if they cheated me, I have not. So judiciary is a peak and the foundation of a nation. But we are not surprised. You hear the way we get injunction here. If somebody stop in Lagos, you can go to Zamfara State and get injunction. Another person go to Ogoni in River State and get the same injunction. What kind of judiciary is that? So I'm not surprised. What we should be surprised is about the power that be. When we were campaigning APC, in 2015, we said we're going to cut the excess of corruption. This word means corruption. When things doesn't work the way it's supposed to work, it's corruption. Corruption is only stealing money. What they're complaining there is corruption of the structure. Number three, you are close with this. When Malaki was saying about bureaucracy, does it mean that the Chief Justice is the best master of judiciary of the judges? Does it mean that the Chief Justice is the one who maintains their suite? Bureaucracy. There must be civil servant. I don't know how it works. What is the work of the Minister of Justice? Should I close there? The problem is not about judiciary. The problem is entirely the structure and the administration of Nigeria. Thank you, and God bless you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dominic. The point, from what Reverend Dominic said, I sort of can identify with the point that, why are you acting surprised that this is the way it is within the Supreme Court? Is the Supreme Court of Nigeria not within Nigeria? Tell me which part of Nigeria works, is functional the way you want it to be in a classical sort of sense. Well, yeah, but we still are outraged because let us face it, one would have thought, and I don't think anybody else would have complained, if the lordships and the whole system of justice, if they were just the way it was supposed to be, I don't think anybody will complain. Well, that's the difference. The judiciary is special, though. Nothing can disturb them. Even if we're going to have to manage another side, not with the judiciary. But now the justices are complaining that the situation forces them to close at 4 p.m. when they still have work to do. But to save diesel, you say the lordships should just, pack up and go, come back tomorrow. Ade has called in from the UK. Good morning, Mr. Ade.
Good morning, Dr. Yori. Good morning to my brother there, my learned friend.
Thank you, Mr. Ade.
Lawyer.
Thank you.
I'm happy you added that last bit.
If you observe, Dr. Yori, immediately they sworn in our president on the first term. Immediately. For the first 30 days to 60 days, there is not even one robber in Nigeria. Everybody sits tight. They were waiting for action by a soldier who become a civilian. The fear was in everybody. But after 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, before he now appoint his minister, everybody now relax. It will be surprising to me if you can find anybody that are not corrupt in Nigeria today among the government workers. It would be surprising to me because we hear a lot of things.
Are you linking this, Mr. Ade, to corruption?
Sorry?
Are you linking this situation that we're talking about to corruption?
Of course, it's corruption. It's corruption when judges are suffering. They budget money for them, and where is the money? Who is spending the money? What is happening with the money? How can our judges be suffering in that highest level? Can you imagine? It's very dangerous. So which means when anybody bring a case and the money, the person have a war chest, he can get away with the case because if you give them money, nobody wants to suffer, and that they should be treated. You can't find our judges. You can't even see our judges here. It's not possible. They
Exactly.
quietly,
Exactly.
No any ceremony.
No social parties,
suffers.
social events. You know, one gets the impression that judges, the whole judicial system, needs to be insulated. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Deliberately too. Well, a lot of issues are coming up. That's one of them. If you listen to the tone of the letter itself, you can get away with the impression of allegation of corruption, because the question was pointedly posed: where is our entitlement for ABC, including training exercises outside the country? And that if you place that side by side with the recent budgetary improvement allocations, you would wonder why they are still complaining about the issues that have, that are giving rise to all of this. In fact, when they said 8 to 4 p.m., owing to lack of diesel, I think that also establishes that that's the Supreme Court.
Yes.
In many courts where I practice, National Industrial Court, Federal High Court, High Courts of the states, across board. In short, if you are lucky, you might have, in most states, judiciary, that there was light on the day of your matter. Otherwise, that can be the reason for an adjournment. In short, in the National Industrial Court, for months now, it is between 8 and 2 p.m. And you are told clearly not to dabble into inanities or extraordinary debates and all that, and move straight to the point. Now, the judge has a judgment to deliver. Yes. In some cases, when he faces thorough lawyers, he may be he may exercise this discretion to give what we call bench ruling. That will require that he assembles the law and looks at both sides of the argument and come up with his own verdict, just so that the matter goes on. He has such judgment, he has such rulings. There could be trials. A thorough trial takes not less than 1.5 hours, 2 hours. That is where the court is dominant litus of the court, fully in charge and in control. Okay. Otherwise, it takes much more than that.
Just to also introduce that my second guest has made it. You know what's going on all over the country, but in particular in Lagos, the traffic, fuel, and all of that. But that's not what we're talking about today. Mr. Inibehe Ifeong, a legal practitioner and civil rights activist as well. In fact, Inibehe and Malaki, they're of the same community. All these people are activists and civil rights activists. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you.
Actually, we're not talking about that necessarily today, but you do have an article that is trending on the internet and in the newspapers, talking about, you had written about the placeholder as a device, that it is not a device without risks.
Yes.
So, as I said, that's not what we're talking about today, but I just wanted to sort of flag that. We hear that Kesandu is on the line. Good morning to you, sir, and thank you very much for holding on. Go ahead, please.
Okay, Yori, good morning. And good morning,
sir.
Yes, Kesandu Kenko. Uncle Yori, you see, That is why some of us in this country, we've advocated, our activism has been the restructuring of this country. Uncle Yuri, how on earth will people see us from the Western world that the CJN of the country is controlling the affairs of other Supreme Court judges? You see, he's just the primus inter pares. It is out of luck and every other thing that he was appointed. And it is unfortunate at this time of our lives, when we're trying to make things right in this country, this is the kind of news we can get from the country. It is so unfortunate. For me, I had expected that since this thing broke, maybe Mr. President is waiting to hear this thing officially, he should be called to order. The state of our judicial system today, it is not encouraging for us Nigerians. It is said that it is the last hope of a common man, but it's not what we're seeing. The truth about it is that we cannot continue to do like this. And that is why I've advocated. In fact, come 2023, my vote will only go to that man who we always say that he's going to restructure this country. So that this kind of thing, CJN will just perform his function, and he has no business with some other administrative issues. And I also call the NJC. Don't they have something to do on this? And I will be listening and hoping that the lawyers in the studio will actually educate me on this. I think this thing should not be swept under the carpet. It is a huge disappointment and embarrassment to the entire country. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kesandu, for calling in. Well, Inibehe, let me come to you. We've spoken about some aspects of this. But in addition to the very poor service conditions, the way a layman would see it, just from the leaked memo, it also reminds me that I think even in Lagos State, there was an instance that I'm talking about justices who have retired and have not got their retirement benefits, having retired. Their emoluments, none of that has been done. I recall Justice Candide Johnson, I think, took Lagos State government to court. In fact, the matter had to be settled out of court. So if the sitting justices are telling us of their woes that is militating against the insulation of judicial officers from all these, distractions, those ones that have served and that have stepped down or aside, have retired, are not getting their benefits. So it looks like the whole judiciary system is in, you see, when you're talking about the respected institution of the court, you can't use words anyhow. But otherwise, one would have thought that it's in a complete mess.
The reason why I must say that you would have this kind of explosive memo come out is because this is the apex court. And we are talking about learned justices of the Supreme Court. Mm-hmm. They are the alpha and the omega of judicial decision in the hierarchy of our courts. So for them, they can afford, my lords can afford at that apex level to take the kind of position that they have taken on record. But I can tell you categorically that the poor welfare, the poor, terrible remuneration, and terrible condition of service of judicial officers in Nigeria is not limited to the federal courts, particularly is not limited to the Supreme Court. There is a problem with the way judges are treated in this country. And as much as we have issues with the judiciary, we must also admit that the judiciary is not properly funded. Some time ago...
but they said they have 120 billion naira.
I'll get to the Supreme Court in particular, but I want to lay a foundation.
Okay.
Some time ago, some retired judges in Akwa Ibom, my home state, sent for me, and they explained to me their predicament, that the fact that they had retired, their housing benefits were not paid, many of their colleagues had died without getting their entitlements. These are judges in one of the richest states in Nigeria. In Cross River State, you would have also seen the protest by magistrates, which is supposed to be an abomination in any civilized country.
Malaki mentioned
that magistrates went publicly with placards to protest. You would have also been aware of the judge in Ondo State who had also written, I think, a public letter to the governor, and part of that letter had to do with the condition of service of judicial officers. So there is a problem with the judiciary and the way judges are treated. I attended a roundtable discussion regarding where some judges were in attendance, and a judge told me in confidence that if you know what judges are going through. He said, do you know that I pay my judicial assistant from my pocket every month?
You see.
If they are not well funded, the condition is poor. So when you now have this situation replicated at the Supreme Court, and this is a court where you have thousands of cases. I have a client whose case has been pending in the Supreme Court for over 15 to 20 years. The man just died, barely a year ago. He couldn't get justice. And this has happened to so many people. The cases are piling up. How many justices do we have? Very few.
And so it looks like the system isn't helping them, insulating the justices from direct distractions like that. By the way, let me check. I didn't want to interrupt you. Edwin had called in from Nasarawa. I don't know if he's still on the line. Edwin, you still there?
Yes, I'm still on the line.
Apologies for keeping you waiting, but you understand. Please go ahead now.
Thank you, Malaki, Uncle Yori, and the neighbor.
Thank you.
I am not even talking only about their welfare. If you understand, under this man, number 1 became number 4. That is very clear. And you remember since last year, some 4 or 5, last year and this year, some 4 or 5 justices of Supreme Court who bowed out. Either right there on the appellatory session, said that most of the unanimous and judgment they have been given is in doubt. So a lot of things has gone wrong. Because I am particularly touched by the Supreme Court itself. These are people that are next to God. So you cannot bring a Mohammed to come and flout what God has destined on this man. Thank you very much and have a nice day.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Edwin, for calling in from Nasarawa and waiting for us. Appreciate that. Both you probably understand what he meant when he said number 1 has become number 4. Any idea what that was?
In my preliminary statement here, I alluded to that and said that all of this crisis that has come to the fore now throws up more fundamental questions, including, of course, the recruitment process, even in the judiciary. And I guess that with a member, with a colleague, a co-justice of the Supreme Court, there would have been ways of seeking redress or addressing this issue other than this memo, which has, by the way, leaked, become a public knowledge. And like I said, to this moment, I've not seen a retraction, I've not seen a denial,
but
lending credence to the point that this is facts that must come to the public.
Exactly.
Because whether Nigeria likes it or not.
Exactly.
Because, like I said, once you have crisis in the judiciary, you are looking at the last bus stop for anarchy. To say that Sebastian Hunt, senior advocate of Nigeria, is in court, partly because of what the justices have raised. Before now, this is a senior advocate of Nigeria, showing that if NBA ought to, these are things that NBA, rather than getting the justices,
Okay, Mazi Okorafor, good morning to you, sir. Go ahead, please.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, Samalaki and Perfume. Good morning.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning,
sir. See, when we look at this issue of non-payment, the retirement payment, pension and gratuity, it's always a big problem in Nigeria. If you come to Aja State is nothing to write home about this issue of non-payment. And that is sometimes these people, that is 13 months, 20-something months, 18 months, you start asking, does it mean the government didn't make provision for these people?
Okay, but Mazi, I beg your pardon. Indeed, yes, as you have observed, but the serving ones, the ones that are serving, say their job is being made almost impossible. I understand, but yes.
If you look at the serving one now, the judicial system should be digital, not analog. And where they're supposed to be, all the courtrooms should be what? Fully air-conditioned, with standby gen. And then the government is supposed to provide security for them 24/7. Because what they are doing there is that the risk they take, or they are fine for it. And you ask yourself, the residential home where they are going to say, the government residential area, what is it? And they have to eat well and balance that. Which when you eat well, you think well and you do positively. For the situation whereby the things that are supposed to be there, they are all available. But the question is this: the people confined, they are sitting on top of it, and nobody's lending them.
Okay,
That's
Mazi,
open their
thank you
mouth.
very much, sir. Appreciate your calling in. The point he makes in there, that even the leaked memo alludes to the fact that, look, we have 120 billion allocated to us out of the 2022 budget. And here just said, the wherewithal is there. It's just that for some reason, and Malachi has spoken about this, that how is it being deployed? How is this money being allocated that justices, such eminent people, such people who do such cerebral work, people that need to be protected in society, insulate them and all of that, they are being treated by the system any old how. The point that Mazi made is that he feels that the wherewithal to do the right thing exists. What do you think about that?
The other aspect of this is that, before these justices went to the point of documenting their grievances, I assume, rightly so, that they would have taken steps to address it informally. That probably didn't yield results. Because this is basically an act of protest.
No, they say so.
It is an act of protest.
They actually
So
say that Mr.
conclusion
Mohammed
is a threat.
Yes.
I've sent it.
Yes.
The conclusion of that letter is a
it.
threat.
It is an act of protest.
After being assured that you would look into it, Mr. CJ, you haven't done so.
So for me, I think it is an opportunity for my Lord, the Honorable Chief Justice of Nigeria, to take a holistic view regarding the welfare of judges and judicial officers from the Supreme Court. If they are complaining at that level, what happens to the magistrates?
Exactly.
What happens to the judges of the High Court?
Those ones carry placard. That's what's happening to the magistrates.
So something urgent, something expeditious has to be done. The situation is so worse that even across the country now, at the federal level, they can even do this. At the states, I don't know how many judges at the state level will have the courage to do what my lords have done at the Supreme Court.
Okay.
Yes, because at the state level, you have, like I once said, some chief judges literally going on their knees to beg governors to release funds. To the point that I know a situation where in a state, to print the yearly almanac, the chief judge had to go to the governor to get money. And they couldn't get it. And the contractor was now writing letters just to print yearly almanac for the judiciary. So the situation has become so worse that something urgent has to be done. But part of this is constitutional reform. Because we have the National Judicial Council. The composition of the National Judicial Council is something that Nigeria has to address. And this is not peculiar to the current CJN. A situation where the Chief Justice of the Federation is the chairman of the NJC, is the head of the Supreme Court, is the head of basically all the regulatory institutions within the judiciary. Something has to be done.
Okay,
we need
Emeka,
to checkmate that process. We need to unbundle that process.
Okay, Emeka in Lagos, good morning. Thank you for holding on. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Yuri. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Good morning, Barrister Malaki and Efiam.
Morning.
Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak. In fact, if you could remember vividly, Mr. Yuri, in 2015, where we are the vanguard of publishing and talking and advocating and propagating the coming of Buhari and all of that. Mr. George, so many of us, Mr. George, and even during journalist hangouts, as an Igbo man, I was giving names. Why support this? Why support a man from this? Why support? Today, I am ashamed. In fact, Mr. Yuri, I can tell you categorically that APC today is talking about 2023. But did they ask Nigerians if we're ready for them? That's the question. Everything has failed. Is it only the Supreme Court justices you're talking about? Nothing is working. There is nothing working. Insecurity has gone worse. Kidnappings worse. Killings worse. In fact, everything that we were crying about in 2015 has tripled. It has tripled. There is nothing working. Nigerians should be talking about it. Supreme Court today is talking about the Chief Justice of the Federation taking charge of the bureaucratic running of the Supreme Court. In which part of the world is this kind of story being told? We are a complete mockery of nations. This is the problem. And I thank God for Malaki and Efion. These are great men. I know them. I respect them a lot. And Mr. Uriah, thank you for your unbiasedness. And the country is bleeding. Everything, nothing is working. APC should not be talking about 2023. They should be packing their bags to leave governance. They have failed Nigerians completely.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Yuri.
Thank you very much, Emeka, for calling in. And people are calling in, and some of them are angry, some measured anger. In fact, Mr. Emeka was, on the hyperbolic side there when he says nothing is working. We understand it's a hyperbole. We understand because it's a painful thing, because people will be hard-pressed to say, okay, point something to me that is working. And then the person would have to be looking at the ceiling. This is a problem. So whose problem is it, really, that their lordships have now laid at the doorstep of the Chief Justice of Nigeria? Who else?
Well, Mr. Yuri, there were days or years in the past when Nigerians gravitated towards some cynicism. And they say, oh, the Malakis, they're always on the street protesting. But now, today, where we can see people who are in that sacred aspect of our society protesting in one way or the other. What this says is that we are leaving the comfort zone. Anything can happen any moment from now.
Oh,
what has come out of this is that NBA, just as they did when my Lord Honorable Justice Mary Odele's home was attacked, should rise to the occasion. It took the courage and the force of conviction of my lords, the justices of the Supreme Court, to do this, even if they never intended it to be a public. It is now the responsibility of those who are out there in the public to influence policy decisions, like the Nigerian Bar Association, to rise to the occasion.
Well, any last word?
The other recommendation is that
as we go,
this is a political season. Pre-election and post-election cases are going to the courts. Let the judges in Nigeria resolve that they are not going to take political cases for 1 week. The politicians will now begin to take this issue seriously. We need some form of activism. We need some form of proactive measures. This is a time for courageous judges to stand up and begin to defend the integrity of the judiciary.
All right.
It is a case of physicians heal themselves. They have the power. They may not protest openly, but they know what to do. And I've given an example of what they can do. Let them resolve that for 1 week, we are not going to take pre-election cases.
Okay.
We are not going to take election petition cases when the time
until
comes.
the situation
improves. And you will
improves.
see that something will be done.
Thank you very much. Inebehe Effiong, lawyer, civil rights activist. Thank you very much for coming on the program. And Malaki Ugumadu, again, thank you very much.
Pleasure was mine. Thanks for the opportunity.
President of the Committee for Defense of Human Rights.
I'm grateful.
Thank you very much. So that's our program. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I'm Yori Folani. Bye-bye for now.